Recall a time where you ate something that tasted funky, or perhaps a time where you ate something and it did not digest well. Either way, you probably would not want to go through something like this again. A college student named Mary went to vacation at Food Island with her friend Lucy. Mary is staying at the Martin Motel. It's so hot here, so she decides to drink some water that the motel manager Mark provided her with at the front desk after checking in. She then decides to go to a really good restaurant she heard about called Desert Island. There, waiter Wyatt was about to give her her appetizer and fries, but sadly he dropped them along the way. Mary grew impatient, so he still served it to her. In the kitchen, Chef Chad was overwhelmed with all of the customers storming in. So, to save time, he cooked the raw chicken and the shrimp in the same bowl. He still felt like he was in a rush, so he then reduced the cooking time for the meat. When Mary received her curry chicken, it did not taste right. Another day, her friend Lucy gave Mary her canned soup from back home because Mary was super hungry. On the island, there was a power outage and the motel room fridge was not on for 3 hours. Apparently, motel manager Mark overloaded the circuit. 2 weeks later, Mary's at the end of her vacation, but still has the leftover pie in the fridge that she bought the day before the power outage. She doesn't want it to go to waste, so she heats it up in the microwave and eats it. Later that day, she went to Dina's Delight Market where she got pufferfish. She had to delay her flight because she couldn't stop vomiting, and her fever was very high. Let's find out what happened to her.
Before we disclose why Mary got sick at the end of this video, are there any reasons that you can think of that led to her becoming sick? Was it because Mary drank the dirty water? Or maybe it was because Lucy, the friend of Mary's, gave Mary the old canned soup. Chef Chad at the Desert Island restaurant also hurriedly cooked the curry chicken and gave it to Mary. Delicacy dealer Dina also gave Mary exotic pufferfish. Motel manager Mark at Martin Motel also caused the power outage that caused the fridge to turn off. Waiter Wyatt also dropped the food and didn't clean it. Was it the fries that fell that led Mary to becoming sick? Find out at the end of this video.
Have you ever heard of food safety? Well, let me tell you a bit more. Food safety involves taking all the precautionary steps to ensure that you're eating and preparing food the right way. Despite how preventable this issue is, it still remains one of the largest public health crises that we are going through. Due to a lack of knowledge of food safety and adherence to its regulations, many become sick each year. Millions have been affected by foodborne illnesses, and thousands have died from it annually. This crisis has served to be very costly. The government has allotted a budget of around $1.3 billion a year in order to help educate and decrease the number of deaths and illnesses annually. Everyone should care about this issue because it affects all of us. Eating and drinking plays a major role in our survival, and in order to decrease this issue, we must better ourselves and continue to learn more. Now to go over some examples. Our hands are one of the germiest places on our body, so not washing our hands before preparing food would be a no-no. Looking to save some time, so you cut your meat and vegetables on the same board? Well, you cannot do that due to contamination. Rather, use separate cutting boards or wash in between. Have you ever seen this tool before? Well, this is a meat/cooking thermometer. It is used to test the internal temperature of our food, so we know that it is at the right temperature for consumption and will not make us sick. Now that you have some examples, keep watching to learn more about food safety in all its steps. As we continue, make sure to listen closely and follow along by taking good notes on your worksheet. This will help you with solving the mystery at the end.
Food storage. Here are some general tips. You should keep your refrigerator at a temperature between 35 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit. You should always clean the fridge regularly and wipe spills immediately to prevent bacterial growth. You should keep your freezer at a temperature of 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Although you cannot guarantee killing most bacteria, it will certainly stop bacteria from growing. Food should be stored in tight containers. You should never allow perishables like meat, poultry, seafood, eggs, produce sit at room temperature for more than 2 hours, or no more than 1 hour if the temperature is above 90 degrees. For humidity dry storage, keep shelves clean with good ventilation to control humidity and inhibit growth of molds and bacteria. You should store dry foods at 50 degrees Fahrenheit for maximum shelf life, but up to 70 degrees is usually fine as well. You should store foods away from heat and light sources, which decrease shelf life. Expiration dates. Expiration dates do not necessarily mean food safety dates. Canned goods can last up to 18 months, but don't store them near cleaning products and chemicals. You should check canned goods for holes, stickiness, leaks, and lots of rusting. Eggs can last up to 3 to 5 weeks. And milk can go by the expiration date generally, but it lasts a week. Meat, you should place raw meat in individual plastic bags when collecting them from the grocery store to avoid cross-contaminating other foods. You should keep it in the fridge 3 to 5 days. Seafood, you should never leave out in room temperature for more than 2 hours. Cooked seafood, you should keep it in the fridge for 3 to 4 days. Any frozen fish can be safe indefinitely, but you can freeze cooked fish up to 3 months. But when in doubt, you should always freeze your food to prolong shelf life. Regarding food that fell on the floor, a 5-second rule isn't the best way to go because germs can stick right onto the food, never mind the dirt and dust and whatever else that can be stuck to the food. You're better off just throwing it away. If you lose power, a full freezer can keep an adequate temperature for 48 hours if the freezer's door remains closed at all times. Refrigerated food should be safe as long as the power was not out for more than 4 hours and the door was kept closed. But throw away any perishable food that has been above 40 degrees or more for 2 hours or more.
The second application of food safety that we will discuss today is preparation of food. Food preparation practices are essential to ensure that food safety standards are met inside a cooking environment. Proper handling of raw meats and seafood is critical to avoid cross-contamination. Keep raw meat, poultry, and seafood and their respective juices and liquids away from other foods. Keep uncooked and cooked meats separate from each other, and sanitize all surfaces and utensils that have come into contact with raw meats and seafood. Proper sanitization techniques are also very important in this regard. Even if different equipment in your hands have not come into contact with raw meats and seafood, it is still important to wash your hands and equipment with hot soapy water often and sanitize surfaces. Wear gloves if you have any cuts or abrasions on your hands. Reaching the minimum internal temperature for meat and seafood when cooking is very important. It ensures that all harmful bacteria and parasites are killed or disabled. Temperature minimums for each type of meat differ, and even different parts of the same animal can have different minimum temperature requirements. Check the specific temperature requirements on the USDA webpage to be sure. In general, 165 degrees Fahrenheit is the minimum set requirement for poultry, while 145 degrees Fahrenheit is the minimum set requirement for most cuts of red meat. Ground beef can turn brown before it reaches the minimum internal temperature where pathogens are destroyed. Again, temperature is a much more consistent indicator than color is, and food thermometers should be used for this purpose. Proper thawing of meat and seafood prior to cooking is also very important. The safest method is to thaw food in the refrigerator, which 1. Is at a constant temperature, and 2. Is under 40 degrees Fahrenheit. These two conditions are most optimal for thawing food safely. Foods thawed using faster methods should be cooked immediately after thawing to mitigate bacterial growth. It's actually even safe to cook food from the frozen states, although there may be a decrease in quality of food. Lastly, please evaluate the quality of foods before use. Do not sniff moldy items, as it can cause respiratory issues, and most food products with some mold should be thrown away, but some foods can still be used after proper handling in certain cases. Please check the USDA website for more information.
There are more than an astonishing 250 foodborne illnesses known. Most stem from either bacteria, parasites, or viruses. There are a wide variety of symptoms and vary in severity, but the most common ones include nausea, throwing up, stomach cramps, and diarrhea. Most of the time, medical treatment is not necessary and people will get better on their own. And this includes by replenishing yourself with fluids and electrolytes and using over-the-counter medication. However, this is often not the case in severe instances, and medical treatment is necessary. There are two common raw fish parasites, Anischiasis and Listeria. Common symptoms of Anischiasis include abdominal pain, nausea, and vomiting shortly after ingesting the larvae. Treatment of Anischiasis is mainly just removing the larvae via endoscopic removal. Common symptoms of Listeria include fever, muscle aches, headaches, nausea, vomiting, stiffness, and loss of balance. Treatment of Listeria, although rare of having it in the first place, has an extremely high mortality rate of 20 to 30%, and you should attend the ICU if possible. The science behind drinking dirty water is quite important. It alters composition of gut microbiota and glucose regulation. In travelers, diarrhea is a common side effect, which is mainly loose stool and abdominal cramps.
We will now present 3 different questions to check for understanding. Each question will be given a 20-second period to answer, followed by a 10-second period explaining the answer. Question 1. How do you properly sanitize food? If food is dropped, for meat and fish, recook it or reheat it in the microwave to exterminate bacteria. For fruits and vegetables, you should wash them, but do not wash meat and fish, as you don't want to spread germs from meat and fish around the kitchen. Question 2. How do you know when the food is cooked enough? You know if food is properly cooked when the food product has reached the minimum internal temperature set for it by the USDA. Question 3. What is most important when thawing foods? Meat and seafood is best thawed in a clean setting with constant temperature below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. When using a cold water or a microwave to speed up the thawing process, the thawed product should be cooked immediately afterwards.
Now that you guys are all experts in food safety, what or who made Mary sick? Could it have been Mary? Or was it Lucy? Or could it have been Chef Chad? Or maybe it was motel manager Mark. Could it have been delicacy dealer Dinah? What about waiter Wyatt? I hope you all have your guesses ready. If you said everyone, you are correct. They all played a role in why Mary got sick. I hope you guys have all learned a lot today about food safety. Now, I just want to leave you with a few reflection questions. First being, what can you do to improve and or prevent food safety issues? And the second being, what will you do differently now that you know this information? Thanks for watching.